Hello, it's John Pollock, and this is Fight News Now. On today's show, we will chat with Robin Black and John Ramdine about the UFC's card from Wednesday night in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A card that you'll regret missing if you did. It was headlined by John Lineker and Michael McDonald, plus a round of the year candidate between Tony Ferguson and Lando Vannata. All that and much more coming up on today's show. Stay tuned. I am here with John Ramdine and Robin Black. First of all, you guys have watched 4 cards like me in the past week. Does Wednesday night's card in Sioux Falls take the cake in terms of just pure action?
I mean, it's hard because, as we pointed out...
Well, that's why you make decisions here, John. Tell the people what was the best card.
The best card is having Eddie Alvarez win the UFC Lightweight Championship live on our channel if you're watching in Canada.
What a homer.
It's true, but however, there's a couple of reasons to tune into the card in South Dakota. Yes, you see what John Lineker's capable of, despite the fact that he always has a reach disadvantage. He always gets in there with his hooks. We saw Louis Smolka look outstanding against Ben Wynn. The co-featured bout, Vannata taking this fight on short notice and looked sensational against Tony Ferguson. Knocked Ferguson, El Kukui all around the cage in that first round.
That might have been the best round of the year.
Yeah.
Well, best is hard to describe
I know,
because there are rounds where, Stephen Thompson, there were rounds where he didn't get touched by one of the best fighters in the world, and on some level that's best too, depending on what it is you're looking at. But that was a great night of fights. I mean, Lineker was an interesting one to me because he has oddly assembled a game specifically perfect for him. Not just, wow, he's got power, so he closes distance using his hip and his shoulder to generate power, but also the lack of reach and the lack of sort of mobility that he has in some ways is made up for by the fact, so there are disadvantages to throwing hooks instead of straight lines. Straight line punches will get there quicker, but hooks close the doors on the other side. So when you corner a guy back, you're forcing him this way with this hook, goes that way, you force him this way with this one to the body or the head, which kind of keeps him in front of you, which on some level psychologically makes him realize, I better come out swinging, which is exactly what the kid wants. Like he's just sort of assembled, using his attributes and the skills that he selects, a perfect scenario to draw you into a firefight that he wins.
But the question is, what happens when John Lineker faces some of the giants of the division, the TJ Dillashaw's or the Dominic Cruz's? One of the things we look at is he's flat-footed. And it seems difficult for him to be mobile, and when you think about the matchups between Dillashaw and Dominic Cruz, it seems like they'd be able to exploit that.
They would, and they will when it happens. But they'll be very different fights. It's great if you've got crazy power in those knuckles, but it's not great if you can't touch somebody with them. And so the lack of mobility, going down on your punches and getting flat to the ground and allowing your hips to draw the strength of the earth, that generates power. But you notice the difference. Vannata, we'll talk about that fight too, and Groovy Lando, great job, dude. That was really fun. When early in the fight, he's light on his feet, he's moving. In the second round where things didn't go well, after he got kind of pushed into a corner psychologically, planted down, he could deliver power, but he couldn't get out of the way anymore. He fought out of character at that point. You got to figure out who you are. Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, they don't have that kind of power, and they're never going to have it being that fleet of foot, but you're not going to touch them either. So they're going to win 25-minute, 5-round fights against a guy like Lineker.
Yeah, it's such an interesting time at bantamweight where, so much focus was on TJ Dillashaw this past weekend, but this fight was happening, and I think John Lineker, we're going to see him tested like that in his next fight. Michael McDonald is no pushover. I think this was a massive win for John Lineker.
You got to do John Dodson. Those two guys got to fight, don't you think?
25.
Lineker?
That's if he goes to 35.
He's 35.
Yeah.
Dodson went to 35. Those two little dudes.
That's a great option.
Yeah.
Now we talk about Tony Ferguson having to take this fight on, a new opponent on short notice in Lando Vannata. He was going to headline this card with Michael Chiesa. Lando Vannata, that first round, I look at 199, we had Polo Reyes and Dong-Yun Kim, and a round with Lawler and Condit back in January. Those three are kind of my contenders at this point for round of the year with the first, where this was unbelievable. There was about 2 occasions where you thought Vannata was going to stop Tony Ferguson, and And Tony came back in the second. It just looked like Venata could not keep that pace in the second. But that first round, John, was unreal.
Yeah, and that's going into this fight, I said, I wasn't sure if Venata was going to win this fight, but all the things that you've seen in his past fights and his confidence and the fact that he comes from that Greg Jackson's team, for them to accept this fight against Tony Ferguson on short notice means that they know who Tony Ferguson is and they know who Lando Venata is, and they feel, okay, this is a great opportunity. You don't even have to win this fight. Go out and show people who you are, and people are automatically going to jump on the bandwagon. And I think that's exactly what we saw. The first round kind of set the tone. People became instant fans of Venata. They want to see him again. However, didn't have long enough because of the training camp. I think if he was able to manage because when you think about things, RFA, we know how good it is in RFA, Titan, legacy.
But he was winning in a minute or two there.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. This is a different level. And when he was landing on Tony Ferguson, I just don't think he realized, all right, this is a different level. I have to be able to maintain this for 15 minutes, and he just couldn't do that.
One, he's going to beat a lot of guys.
Yes, he is.
If he keeps growing with this particular freedom and mobility and fluidity, he's going to beat a lot of guys. And two, there's going to be a lot more Lando Venatas. There's a bunch of them right now that grew up going, why does nobody else fight like Dominic Cruz? This guy beats everybody. Why is everybody looking at him and going, oh, he's unique? Dominic Cruz once upon a time didn't fight like Dominic Cruz. He didn't have footwear like that. He built it. He created it. He built it from the ground up. He built a fight identity around it. There's young guys coming up going, I'd like to fight like that guy. For whatever reason, the old guys felt like, well, I'm already this kind of fighter. I can't fight like that. Some of them changed, and Tony's one of them. Tony's one of the guys who's built that improvisational fluidity. But the young guys coming up, you're going to see a lot of guys like this. So Lando Venata, you got to keep getting even better because there's other Lando Venatas out there.
Yeah, very fun style to watch. I mean, just with his arms down and just the way he was just, I think, confusing Tony Ferguson of just what was going to be coming at him. And to go against a guy like Tony Ferguson, who you could have argued could be next in line for a lightweight title shot. This was a total win-win for Lando Venata. Now, Ben, he didn't win. He got smoked by Luis. This was an awesome.
It was awesome. It really was.
This was a great performance by Luis Smolka, who might be one of the most entertaining flyweights to watch. This guy was the underdog going into this fight.
Weird.
10-8 first round. He was on the verge of another 10-8 in the second.
But you have to remember, though, it takes two to tango, and if you didn't have such a great opponent like Ben Wynn, you wouldn't.
This guy took a lot of punishment.
Exactly. He took a lot of punishment, but you saw that he was constantly trying to figure out a way out of these dangerous spots with Luis Smolka on top, constantly attacking, taking a lot of risks, sitting back for leg locks when he didn't need to do that, and on top of that, dishing out so much punishment with his elbows. Really a perfect performance by Luis Smolka because he understood who Ben Wynn was, fighting in his own backyard, so to speak, and you know how crafty he was. So just an awesome win for Smolka.
And fighters and coaches, I'll bet you 90% of them think that, was it Herb? Yeah, Herb did a great job.
He did.
And they really do, because they know how, you saw Jossaman at the moment where it's like, okay, he's done. That's it.
That's it. Step
but
right
you
in.
never saw that. Wynn is still trying to work his way out of those positions, work his way. And Herb's job is to go, God, I can't believe this kid's still working, but he's still working. And my responsibility is to let him keep working until when it's done, it's done. There's a point at which Herb goes, this kid's working so much, he's going to get himself hurt. And he does have the option to pull that, but that kid kept working. And I saw him fight my friend Eric Perez, a guy I fought in Winnipeg. Same damn thing. This kid, that's who he is. Ben Wynn is that guy.
Last thing, Uriah Faber, Jimmy Rivera, UFC 203. Do you like this fight for Faber?
I mean, I love Uriah Faber. I think anytime he's in a fight, especially if it's a guy like doesn't have a big name like Rivera, you're going to see Uriah Faber go after him. Constantly look for the takedowns, look for the finish. You're going to see mobility, and Rivera has a huge opportunity here. Just like we saw with Venata, you don't have to win. You just have to look good, and you can leapfrog a whole slew of people in your division.
And if Uriah or anyone else like that does this forever, eventually one of these young guys will beat him, and you want that to be you on the night. But Uriah, go do your thing.
That wraps it up for us. You can tune in to Fight News Now each and every weeknight here on Fight Network, and we will chat with you next time.